All right, it is Memorial Day, but as you know, I don't take days off of our 49ers coverage. We've got to get back at it. We've got to talk about this roster, the 49ers offensive line. Obviously, have a lot of intel from OTAs this past week. And until now, I hadn't had a chance to sit down and actually go through some of the OTA video that I was able to get for everybody. So we've got over 5 minutes of it right now, and we can talk 49ers as we watch it, starting with the 49ers offensive line. You see them all working out there. 77 is Dominic Pooney, 49ers third-round pick. He's over to the right of the screen, but back to the veterans right now. Aaron Banks working with Colton McKivitz there on the left side. Spencer Burford, part of the action as well. There's Bryson Mays, number 69. He's one of the rookie centers. 75 is Brandon Parker, the veteran, formerly of the Raiders, former third-round pick. He's in competition to be the 49ers swing tackle. 66 is Drake Nugent. I'm going to pause it here very briefly. Nugent is the shorter center out of Michigan who was the undrafted free agent. So you can see not as tall as his teammates, but I think from a strength perspective, Drake Nugent can hold his own. I would not be surprised if he was able to stay in the building, maybe on the practice squad to begin, but the 49ers down the road especially are looking for some center help. And we're going to talk about different offensive line groupings that the 49ers can use this year. And with Jake Brendel not part of these workouts right now because of the knee issue, knee tendonitis, John Feliciano has been at center. Feliciano's 55, right in the middle of your screen. That opens up some interesting guard possibilities for the 49ers with the youngsters, including 77, Dominic Pooney. Now, with Jake Brendel having the knee tendonitis, as we take a look at George Kittle at practice for the 49ers, you start to think about what might be next at center for San Francisco. And that includes the names like Drake Nugent. That includes the names like Bryson Mays. Dominic Pooney played some center. Here's a quick little glimpse. We're going to rewind to get back at it at Kalia Davis, by the way. He could be an important member of this 2024 49ers team. But Dominic Pooney played center at that Senior Bowl. So there obviously is a chance that he ends up there for the 49ers in the future, although I would think that guard is probably more likely for him. The nice thing about Pooney is the versatility. Anyway, Kalia Davis, third-year defensive tackle. 49ers badly need a defensive tackle that can plug against the run because DJ Jones, after he left this team in 2021, the run defense just hasn't been the same. Last year, they were badly missing that position. So this is a paused video. It's not frozen on your screen if you're just joining us. This is just a very quick 2-second look at Kalia Davis, the 49ers' third-year defensive tackle who they've compared to DJ Jones as far as skill set. When you look at Kalia Davis's body, you say, okay, wait, that's a big fire hydrant type of build, but you also see really athletic legs. And if you watch the tape, and we've discussed this multiple times in the past, he was actually an inside linebacker for Central Florida. You don't see the inside linebacker to the defensive tackle position conversion. That's why they believe that Kalia Davis has exceptional explosiveness for that inside spot. Here's the 49ers' new linebacker, Devondre Campbell, formerly of the Atlanta Falcons and the Green Bay Packers. Now, his time with the Falcons was in a Dan Quinn system. Dan Quinn, 4-3, Seattle, cover 3 style system. That's why the 49ers believe that Campbell can acclimate quickly to fill in for Dre Greenlaw because he has played in the system already. I always like to take a look at the tight ends working with the 49ers offensive tackles in some of the combo blocking drills. Now, interestingly, you see 62, Jarrett Kingston, is working with the 49ers tackles. He is a later round pick out of USC, is shorter than most tackles. You could see how much shorter he is than Colton McKivitz, even in the tight ends there. That might be just a numbers thing. I know he played some tackle at USC. It's probably just a numbers thing for practice. But the fact that Kingston is working with the tackles before Dominic Pooney is, to me, that was something of note. So we'll see if they're developing some positional adaptability for Jarrett Kingston. There's Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall moving. That stutter step for Ricky Pearsall really is impressive. We'll watch that again a little bit later. We're going to go through the receivers again. See, Trent Taylor's now wearing 19. Deebo Samuel now wearing number 1. So Taylor wearing Deebo's old number. Here's Pearsall again. Got a little bit of the stutter step, but he's a smooth operator. Slick Rick. what they call him. Ricky Pearsall, 49ers rookie receiver. No Jacob Cowing at the OTA practice that was open to cameras last week. We'll see if he's back out there on Wednesday when I'm back out on the field in Santa Clara. But there's Debo wearing the slimming number 1. Kyle Shanahan said you better be slimming if you're changing to number 1 or any single digit. So Debo, I think he looks good in the number 1, but it's funny to see Trent Taylor in Debo's old number 19. Danny Gray is going to be fighting to stay on the 49ers roster. He's number 6. He's going to be back there second going in this group, the speedy Danny Gray, next to Tay Martin, 86, who was showing out at the rookie minicamp, was eligible. And there's Tariq Owens, Terrell Owens' son, wearing the 84. He obviously faces an uphill battle to make this 49ers roster, but people, just as a 49ers legacy project, they're going to keep an eye on him, as they will on Ricky Pearsall, who obviously is going to make that 49ers roster. He had a good practice, too, when we were there on Tuesday. I mean, he was generating a lot of separation. The stutter step, the lean, all that movement that Ricky Pearsall really perfected, I think, learning from his dad growing up, because his dad was a really, really good receiver for Northern Arizona, but Ricky's got more height. His mom was a former volleyball player, so I think Ricky probably gets some of that height from his mom, but his dad was a stud receiver in Northern Arizona. You could tell that he has the nuances of that position down. Of course, we're going to go to the quarterbacks. This is a look at Mr. Purdy himself, taking the field at 49ers OTA practice in front of cameras for the first time in this 2024 season. I mean, the last time we had seen Purdy throwing at OTAs was in 2022, after he had been drafted number 262 overall. He didn't get much action there, didn't get much shine, because that was all about the 22 OTAs were all about Trey Lance getting into rhythm for the 49ers. That is not Trey Lance, though. Number 5 now belongs to Josh Dobbs. So that's a quick look at the 49ers roster. You know, we could talk about offensive line. We could talk about Pearsall moving. I think Pearsall's background is so fascinating. And I haven't yet to see a receiver in his first year with the 49ers as technically advanced as Ricky Pearsall. That much is clear right off the get-go. I mean, somebody like Dante Pettis was a smooth mover, but the 49ers grew fairly quickly disenchanted with Dante Pettis because he didn't have the toughness that they needed, didn't have the physicality that they needed, especially for a team that was pushing the run game as hard as it was. They might be passing more than they're running now, but toughness and receivers blocking is forever going to be part of the 49ers DNA as long as Kyle Shanahan is the head coach. So I think that they've seen the toughness from Ricky Pearsall on tape, but when I'm just talking movement ability, when I'm talking the way that he carries himself on the field, this is one polished receiver. I mean, that much is clear. Whether or not he's going to be able to consistently beat muscled up press man coverage in the NFL, that's something that's going to have to actually wait till real games, maybe some training camp. But I think the 49ers are confident that he'll be able to. He's got the strong base. He's got long arms. I mean, the athleticism for Ricky Pearsall, the way that he was able to get off the line was really impressive. It was funny because Greg Papa was mentioning that there was one press that he did beat practice. I didn't see it because it was at Thursday's practice. That was just the one that Greg Papa was allowed into. It wasn't an open media practice. He said that Samuel Womack tried to press Ricky Pearsall, and he just blasted by him. So Ricky is, people will worry because of the 189, 190-pound frame. To me, it doesn't seem like he plays at 189 pounds. To me, it seems like he plays at 200 plus as far as what his functional strength is. But what I've been able to see is that little stutter step. I've been able to see the little lean, the way that he sets up cornerbacks. I've been able to see the separation that he's been generating. And of course, I saw the highlight reel catches from college in Florida. So I know that he can catch the ball in a game situation. John Lynch said the 49ers put on Ricky Pearsall's tape and they expected to see several good plays. And then you expect the tape to start trailing off. And, there could be solid plays, but there aren't wow plays continuing to roll minutes into the tape. That wasn't the case with Ricky Pearsall. It just kept on impressing them. They kept on saying, wow, this is good stuff. And keep in mind that watching tape as an NFL team is not watching a highlight reel. You're watching how the guy is moving away from the football. It's probably even more important to note how he moves when the ball's not coming in his direction, especially for a player like Ricky Pearsall, because he was playing with such bad quarterbacks in college. He went through 3 quarterbacks at Florida last season. When you go through 3 QBs in 1 year, it's probably not a good thing. They were struggling to get him the football. So that probably was a good break for the 49ers, but they had to work a little bit harder in their research on Ricky Pearsall. Why was it a good break? Because if this guy had 1,500 receiving yards in his final year at Florida, he probably goes in the top 10. He's probably more in Malik Neighbors territory. The fact that they weren't able to get him the ball, and I thought that it was fitting that in the 49ers' first rookie minicamp, the quarterbacks were struggling to get Ricky Pearsall the ball, and some people were saying, oh, Pearsall didn't look that good. It's the same evaluation mistake that people made on Ricky Pearsall coming out of college. He's a little bit underrated coming out of college because he wasn't getting the ball as much. But if you have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, which the 49ers do in Brock Purdy, he's going to be able to get the ball a lot more. And that was demonstrated immediately. The difference between rookie minicamp and the first OTA practice, Ricky Pearsall made several catches in the first OTA practice working against veterans, not just rookies anymore. And it was because Brock Purdy and company were throwing him the football. In fact, the one incompletion that went Ricky Pearsall's way on that out pattern where Rock Yassin broke it up, that wasn't Brock Purdy throwing the football. So first impressions of Ricky Pearsall, who also from Arizona, like Purdy, they've already been throwing. Their teams played against each other in high school. There's this epic game in high school in Arizona. Brock Purdy and his team put up 70 on Ricky Pearsall's team, but Pearsall's team put up like 50. It was like 70 to 50, and Pearsall had 200 to 300 yards receiving in that football game. Anyway, he and Purdy have been throwing, and the connection looked a lot better. I just cannot wait to see with my own eyes how Pearsall is going to operate against press coverage. Then it's a matter of rapport. And right now the 49ers are waiting on the Brandon Ayuk deal. Obviously, that's not done yet. It's probably the way that the contract negotiations have worked with the 49ers of the past few years. We probably shouldn't expect anything until July at the soonest. So for OTAs, Pearsall is going to get more rapport work with Brock Purdy than probably anyone else. I mean, there's some Deebo Samuel in there. He made a few catches, but I think the 49ers are really going to try to work Pearsall into the mix as they did in that first OTA practice. But, you know, while the Brandon Ayuk situation is not fully resolved, you want to integrate another weapon into that X kind of role. And, you know, it's interesting to me because Ayuk obviously is a bigger frame than Ricky Pearsall. And people will say, okay, Brandon Ayuk is the prototypical X receiver. Pearsall might be more in the mold of Deebo Samuel's position. Pearsall can play a little bit of slot. I think that ultimately, when you draft a receiver in the first round, you like his route running adaptability and his alignment versatility so much that you think that he could fill in at any position out on that field. And I think that the 49ers want it to be in a spot where they feel good, even if Brandon Ayuk misses a game due to injury or the contract dispute, whatever you have it. They can feel good if Deebo Samuel misses a game. They can feel good in the slot at any time. I think that this lineup, this offensive collection that the 49ers have at receiver is way more interchangeable than the casual fan gives it credit for. And that's something that the 49ers, and this makes it hard for rookie receivers to see the field, by the way, because Kyle Shanahan will demand that you know every single position. The receiver position is not just one, it's every single one. You got to know every one to make it interchangeable. So interchangeability is not easy to attain. You need to know the playbook and the route combinations and the jobs of the other guys from every single spot. So oftentimes a rookie will come in, they only had to learn one receiver position in college, and the college playbook is much simpler to begin with than the NFL playbook. And, you know, you're like, why aren't they dominating right away? Well, to master the 49ers system, you need to know all of these spots, which is why I think that we've seen rookies take a little while to get used to it, right? The 49ers brought in Pierre Garçon, a veteran in 2017, to establish the expectation, help pass on the teaching points that are needed to know every single position in the 49ers receiver room. So Pearsall is going to have to show mastery of that so that he can fit in They brought back somebody like Trent Taylor, who obviously knows the system, and I think he can help in that room. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk can help in that room, but he's not in the building now. Deebo Samuel can help in that room. Thankfully for the 49ers, he's in the building, but it's a crash course for somebody like Ricky Pearsall. And if it goes well, then you're going to see the type of adaptability that allows the 49ers to stay afloat, even if they're missing one or two of their key weapons over the course of this season at some point. That ultimately is the goal here in this win now year. The past iterations of the 49ers had really been hamstrung offensively when they were missing one of their top receiver weapons. It got a bit better last year. After Christian McCaffrey showed up, I mean, he's so valuable to this team. That helped them bridge the gap of receiver injuries a lot more effectively than before. But in 2019, they were so desperate to add somebody that they traded a couple picks there for Emmanuel Sanders. That was really important, right? In 2020, it got downright ugly in some of those games where they're missing their top guys. I still remember the big Richie James game where they got killed by the Green Bay Packers in that primetime game. That was painful. I believe that was a Thursday night game against Green Bay in front of an empty stadium in 2020. They didn't have enough receiver depth. They didn't have running back depth to truly bridge a gap back in that year. Then you went to 2021 and 2022, and in 22, you see the team pick up Christian McCaffrey. 21 was more of a running back depth issue. And when they picked up McCaffrey, that killed two birds with one stone because A, it gave you epic Hall of Fame caliber insulation at that running back room, but it also creates such a profound impact positively on the spacing of the pass game that he made all the other receivers look better. And when that happened, even if you had receiver injuries, you were able to bridge that gap and survive it. I think that moving forward, you want to be able to bridge that receiver gap with somebody in the receiver room per se on a rookie contract. And that is Ricky Pearsall. So if you miss Brandon Ayuk for a game, if you miss Deebo Samuel for a couple games, having Ricky Pearsall producing on this roster is going to be a really, really valuable thing for the 49ers. I'm going to go back to this right here. We're going to take another look at the 49ers offensive linemen because that's what I want to talk about next. Isaac Alarcon, by the way, over there on the very right side. Let's rewind. Very right of your screen or right in the middle. That's Alarcon. I just paused at 67, working against Brandon Parker. Now, Parker, he wasn't a bad player for the Raiders. It's been injuries that have really set him back. 49ers picked him up as a free agent. They're paying him the minimum. It's going to be really interesting to me. Does Brandon Parker win this 49ers swing tackle job? Does he stay healthy? Left side of the screen, you got McKivitz and Aaron Banks working. There's Burford and Nick Zakelj. Zakelj is going to be fighting for a roster spot. There's John Feliciano for the 49ers, 55, who's been playing center at some of these practices. But Parker, you could see, that's a big veteran body, 75. I paused it again on the left side of your screen. Parker winning the swing tackle competition is something that people aren't talking about enough. This is not a bad player. This is an injured player, a frequently injured player, not injured as at the moment. He's healthy. He's at OTAs, and he's going to be, if he stays healthy, he's going to be a lot more ready to go than some of the 49ers rookies. So keep an eye on Brandon Parker. I think that absolutely is somebody who can make some noise for the 49ers. Obviously, Drake Nugent, we talked about him. 62 is Jared Kingston working with the tackles right now. When you talk about how the 49ers might mix in some of their rookies, if Feliciano, 55, is playing center, and I know Jake Brendel is out right now with a knee tendonitis, but if Feliciano is playing center, there's Feliciano in the middle, I paused it again, then your right guard position suddenly opens up. Spencer Burford started last year as the number one guy at right guard. 49ers weren't all too thrilled with his performance. So they slotted John Feliciano in there by season's end. Feliciano got hurt in the Super Bowl. That injury led Burford to go back in. Burford made a critical mistake. We all know what happened there. Brock Purdy had to essentially throw the ball away in overtime. Feliciano's about to play his last year. And don't get me wrong, John Feliciano played good football with the 49ers last year. So that's one thing. A lot of people are like, oh, Feliciano, that's just some kind of replacement level guard. And last year, he was far above replacement level. This team I mean, really, really got a boost with him playing right guard. But he started all season at center for the New York Giants 2 years ago. So he can play center. And if the 49ers believe they need an upgrade over Brendel at center, which I think they're eyeing in the long term, that's why they added 3 center capable players, 4 if you include Jarrett Kingston, to the roster this offseason. But if they're eyeing a longer term upgrade to Jake Brendel, they also presumably would be okay with a shorter term upgrade there. There's a chance that Feliciano plays center this year, especially if Brendel's dealing with a knee tendonitis. Now, Brendel, obviously, you hope that he gets healthy and you hope that he can play at 2022 level. I thought he was better in 22 than he was in 2023. I don't know if the knee issues have had an impact negatively on his anchor. I think that's what he struggled with most. He's tremendously athletic. I mean, Jake Brendel can get to the second level. The 3-cone time, the short shuttle time for Jake Brendel, really, really impressive. So he's tremendously athletic. He can do what the 49ers need to in the run game, but it's a matter of rigidity and strength in the pass game, and Feliciano brings a little bit more of that. So say Feliciano plays center. This is just a hypothetical situation. That opens up the right guard spot. Spencer Burford will obviously have a chance to compete to keep his job there, but that's where Dominic Pooney, the rookie third-rounder, who we can take another look at right now, so where Dominic Pooney is going to come in. Pooney is 77, right in the middle of your screen. Look how ready-made Pooney's body looks for the NFL level. He does not look out of place in that group at all. And trust me, when you stand next to Dominic Pooney, and we'll see him go through the cycle here one more time, when you stand next to him, you're impressed that there's not a lot of extra weight in there. Alarcon getting to work with Brandon Parker. Here comes Pooney. There's not a lot of extra weight. He's very, very quick. One of the short shuttle times that was under that 4.47 mark. He's at 4.4 flat in the 4.4 in the short shuttle, which is a great bellwether of NFL success. He can plug in there potentially at that right guard position. I think that Pooney would compete immediately with somebody like Spencer Burford. Maybe not somebody like John Feliciano, but if Feliciano's at that center spot, then the right guard position is open. Now, then you bring the question to Aaron Banks at left guard. And Banks, he's right in the middle of your screen at 65 at left guard, is entering the final year of his rookie contract. There he is working with Colton McKivitz. So Dominic Pooney can also push Aaron Banks at left guard. And it would be very unlikely that he would unseat him, but you have to realize the 49ers will have an opening there, at least contractually, to fill in 2025. So all of a sudden, when you look at the construction of this 49ers offensive line from that contractual standpoint, and you could see it here on the roster, you could see, okay, they need players potentially at both guard positions because Banks is only under contract for one more year. Feliciano is probably going to retire after this year, and the center spot. So now, okay, whoa. That's why they added Dominic Pooney, a versatile offensive lineman who could play both sides, who could play tackle, who could play center, but that's why they're starting him at guard. That's why they project Jarrett Kingston as a guard. He currently is working at tackle. That's probably just for a numbers situation over the course of these practices, since Trent Williams is not in the building currently during OTAs, but Jarrett Kingston projects as a guard. That's why they signed Drake Nugent and Bryson Mays as undrafted free agents. Those guys project as centers. Bryson Mays might be able to slot in as a guard at some point, but I think Nugent and Mays both have the body types. They're a little bit smaller to be in that center position preferably. So you can see why the 49ers focus so heavily on the interior line, because that is where the biggest potential shuffles come. That's also where the biggest problems were as far as blocking Brock Purdy over the course of the past 2 seasons, and especially over the course of the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs. You've got to gear up to beat Kansas City if you're the 49ers, period. That's what you have to be focused on. If you're not gearing up to beat the Chiefs, then you can't expect to get over the hump. And the Kansas City Chiefs have a guy named Chris Jones. Chris Jones is a dominant interior lineman. Yes, he will work against the tackles on the outside, kind of like Aaron Donald would move all around. But Chris Jones makes his hay in the middle of the formation. And Chris Jones obviously ran right by Spencer Burford on that play that I was talking about in the Super Bowl. Chris Jones gave the 49ers trouble back in 2019 when they played in Super Bowl 54. So the interior line, if it doesn't get better for the 49ers, that's where they're going to have the toughest time getting over the hump of beating the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's where they focus their efforts. Now, people are impatient about the tackle position. I get it, because you've got Trent Williams on one side and you have Colton McKivitz, who had some below average pass blocking grades on the right side for the 49ers. But tackle is always the tougher position to add, because tackles and the body type and the speed and all that you need to succeed on the exterior, when there's a whole lot more room to block, because guys can run around you as a tackle. So you have to have a quicker stride. You have to have a longer reach. Tackles are harder to come by. So generally, tackles that are going to move the needle go high in the first round, or you get lucky, right? You find somebody who's a gem a little bit later and you develop him into a good tackle. He can be scrappy at the position. He could succeed for a short amount of time at the position, but might get exposed over the longer run. Somebody like Daniel Brunskill was a great tackle for the 49ers in 2019, but ultimately they said, he's going to start getting beat out here. People are going to start figuring out ways to get around him because he doesn't have that dominant body type. So they moved Daniel Brunskill to the inside. The point is that finding tackles that are going to be multi-year starters in the NFL is very, very difficult business, especially within the scheme that the 49ers run. And they did not have one of those high first-round picks. So by the time that they pick at number 31, the premier tackles that would have been really interesting to see in their system, to see if they could succeed Trent Williams, to see if they can immediately unseat Colton McKivitz, those guys weren't on the board anymore. You had to go to guys like Roger Rosengarten, who was more limited, who wasn't a first-round kind of talent. He was extremely fast, not quite as quick. The short shuttle, which the 49ers really liked with their offensive linemen this year, was good, but not great for Roger Rosengarten. But shorter arms, a little bit lighter, wasn't really the prototypical dominant tackle that you would see starting multiple years. They obviously didn't draft Roger Rosengarten. He went to the Ravens right before who traded up right before the 49ers. So the 49ers were more interested at that stage in the draft. Well, they went with Renardo Green right after Rosengarten. It was a defensive back. But past the elite tackle stage in the draft, the 49ers were much more interested in improving the interior offensive line as opposed to the exterior offensive line, because they saw much more value. They saw much more potential to grab instant impact players or quick impact players on the interior at that point in the NFL draft. It was fascinating stuff strategy-wise. They went after these guys who were very quick in the short shuttle. And that's something that I talked about in one of my recent articles. We're going to get to that in a second. By the way, speaking of my recent articles, congratulations to the Czech Republic. They won the World Ice Hockey Championship. And 49ers fans, I know you guys, this is the article I wrote on Czech ice hockey players playing for the San Jose Sharks a few years ago. So it all came full circle. But take a look at this right here. These are the celebrations in Prague yesterday. I know 49ers fans might get a little jealous here, but this is what 49ers fans are going to want in the Bay Area. And who knows, maybe they're next. So I can only imagine what it will look like in the Bay Area. It might not look that crazy. For the 49ers to get to that level of celebration, they're going to have to block better. That's why we talk about the offensive line. That's why I wrote this. I talked about their focus on the short shuttle. All four of the linemen that the 49ers picked up, and then you could see Pooney and Jarrett Kingston. Those are the two draftees. You have Bryson Mays and Drake Nugent on top of that. All four of them ran extremely quick short shuttle time. So the 49ers are aiming at quickness this year over, I think, anything else. And they're not just looking at speed quickness and getting to the second level quickness. They're looking at side to side quickness, which is what the short shuttle measures on top of some of that explosiveness and speed. And I think that they've watched the tape over the past few years and they've seen way too many guys are beating our guards inside. They're crossing their face with quickness and they're blasting by them to get to Brock Purdy. Basically, 49ers offensive linemen have not been getting to their spot quick enough on the inside to beat some of these ultra-athletic edge rushers in the NFL, and the 49ers want to change that. Aaron Banks doesn't have a great short shuttle time. Spencer Burford, the starting right guard, not a great short shuttle time. Jake Brendel, better with the short shuttle. I don't know if he has been quite as good, though, with the strength needed to anchor against the bull rush, but that's neither here nor there. We're talking about the two guard positions, and quickness has definitely been something that the 49ers need to do a better job cultivating at the guard position. So they focused on this one metric. They've gotten 4 of the fastest short shuttle times that have come into the draft or into the combine over the course of the past 10 to 15 years in the 4 players that they got. It's been a very targeted approach. And, you know, when you have struggled to pick up quality offensive linemen through the draft, as the 49ers have over the years, I think that's been the one area where there's been a documented miss rate for the 49ers as far as getting truly plus players. I think that it's a good idea to circle the wagons, rely a little bit more on your R&D department, your research and development guys, the analytics guys, and attack the problem through data. Attack the problem through, okay, this is where we struggled. Let's get guys who are measurably good at addressing the area where we struggled. We struggled in quickness and pass protection. We weren't able to get to our spots up on the line of scrimmage fast enough to take on these defensive tackles who are getting smaller and quicker. Let's get guys who are really quick, who can move. And Dominic Pooney is a little bit of both, right? Dominic Pooney is a big guy. That's why I said it's so important to note that he carries his weight well, because he has that really fast short shuttle time, number 77 there on your screen, but he can also move. And that way the 49ers believe they can get the best of both worlds. They think they can have somebody who has the quickness to get to that spot, but also the strength to anchor in it against a bull rush. This was the number 20-something pass protection last year for the 49ers. It wasn't good. They need to get better when it comes to pass protection. And they need to get better when it comes to identifying where the pressure is going to come from. That goes back to the center position. There's a lot that the 49ers need to get better at up front. And that's all what will determine if this offense can take the next step. Now, we have to keep everything in perspective. This was still the number 1 offense in the league last year. The fact that they're the number 1 offense in the league, despite having pass protection that ranked, number 22 or number 23, according to most of those metrics, that's a very, very good look for Brock Purdy. Imagine how good Brock Purdy can be if they can figure out some of those interior protection issues. If Colton McKivitz can take another step at right tackle. They've added more to the skill positions when you look at somebody like Ricky Pearsall. They might be better at tight end this year. We'll see what Eric Saubert, the veteran, can do. I mean, he's been with a lot of teams. He's been a guy who's been able to get the job done over the course of, 9 years in the NFL. You need to find somebody to pair with George Kittle. I don't know if you can count on Cam Latu. He's going to have a reset after dropping all those passes. He's still out of practice right now. So 49ers are in a spot where the skill positions, there was still a little bit to improve if they wanted to reach the ultimate ceiling there. I don't think you could get much more loaded than they are at the running back and the receiver positions. I mean, that's pretty damn impressive. Even at running back, they're able to add Cody Schrader and Isaac Guerrero on top of Christian McCaffrey. Tight end, obviously, that second tight end is somewhere where the 49ers can still get better. They took that bigger swing at Brock Wright out of Detroit, the restricted free agent. They weren't able to get him. But it's the offensive line where there's the most slack that the 49ers are trying to pick up. So I'm going to be watching with great fascination to see if the 49ers can take that next step along the offensive line, because that is what can make Brock Purdy even more efficient. And hey, he was already the most efficient quarterback in all football last year. That's the thing about Purdy, is he was dominant and he did it in less than ideal circumstances. I mean, one of the things that people get wrong about Brock Purdy is they say he was set up for instantaneous success without any potential pitfalls. Yet they forget that he was playing behind an offensive line that ranked in the 20s in pass protection. So he was the only quarterback last year with elite efficiency, top level efficiency, playing behind an offensive line that had bottom half efficiency. So there's something special about Brock Purdy's quick release, about his processing power, and about his escapability. He obviously has, I think, a really, really good ability to create off schedule. There's something really special about that, to the point that he can overcome a subpar offensive line. So I think that the 49ers will be behooved to deliver a plus offensive line, such as the one that they had in 2021 before Mike McGlinchey got hurt. That might have been McGlinchey's best year with the 49ers. But in 2021, when they had Alex Mack at center, that was a good offensive line. And Jimmy Garoppolo benefited from that over the course of the year. Then the offensive line started suffering injuries, and so did the quarterback, because right tackle Tom Compton started getting beaten that season. So 2021, solid offensive line for San Francisco. That's the high water mark of the offensive line in the Shanahan era. You got to try to get it back to around that level. They were about number 10 in pass block win rate in 2021. Get it back to number 10, and I think that Brock Purdy can break some records here in 2024. How's the Memorial Day weekend for everybody? Everybody having a good time? I'm about to go hit the pool. Not to swim laps today, just to chill. Maybe drink a couple beers before I get on a plane today. My wife's already waiting for me out at the pool. I have a few friends out there, so we're going to go hang out. She came with me to go swim the other day. This is a story I've told before, but as you guys know, I swim a lot, and we were at the pool, and she's just out there sun tanning. She's like, hey, she comes over to the pool. This is Margot that we're talking about. She comes over to the pool, and I'm like, oh, wow, she actually wants to get in. Like, this is like 2 years ago. I never seen her like actually get in and swim before. And it's a lap pool. I'm like, oh, how cute. Like, do you need me to help you or whatever? Because like, she's like tiptoeing over to the pool, and she literally is like, give me your goggles. I'm like, okay, here you go. Puts on my goggles, dives in, swims an entire 50 freestyle, does a flip turn at the other end, and comes back and gets out and just goes and lays down. Like, fast too. I never seen her practice swimming. I never seen anything like this. And it was like, holy crap, where did she learn that? So I was blown away. It's one of my biggest surprises ever, because swimming is not just something that you do. And to my knowledge, she had never competed before. So pretty exciting stuff. I'm not in danger of losing that race. I'll say that. She's not that fast, but she pleasantly surprised me. She's like 5'11", so I guess the height helped there. All right. Speaking of my swimming, we got another big one coming up after I got seasick doing the Golden Gate Bridge. I mean, that was an epic swim to do. I'm glad that we did it. But boy, we went on a day where the conditions were not nice to us, and that was one of the more painful experiences of my life. Did somebody really say this? A system quarterback with no physical traits that somebody said that? I don't even know who Greg Rosenthal is. But Brock Purdy's got better physical traits than about 95% of the league when it comes to quickness. Brock Purdy's 10-yard split is the same as Christian McCaffrey's. His burst in a short space, when it was tested, was about equivalent to Christian McCaffrey's. So when you say he has no physical traits, well, to me, that's a physical trait that a lot of people are lauding Lamar Jackson for. You know, every time people see a mobile quarterback, they'll be like, oh, that guy can really move. Brock Purdy's in the same category. He can really move. He's an elite mover. And then people turn around and say that he doesn't have good physical traits or has no physical traits. It's just not true. It shows bias. It shows a lack of understanding of what you are talking about. Sometimes I think I'm half fish too, and then I get into the water at the Golden Gate Bridge and they call that water the washing machine, and I realize I'm not half fish because fish don't get seasick. Everybody have a great day. Thank you. I'm ready for more questions. Looks like people are just chilling since it's Memorial Day, so maybe we won't have many questions. I never sent Nick Wright any stats. I don't need to send Nick Wright stats. He's, I think, beneath the level of analysis that we bring on this show. We've been correct about everything regarding Brock Purdy, and he's been wrong about everything regarding Brock Purdy. I think that's as simple as it can be. And you could go to the people who said that Trey Lance would beat out Brock Purdy last year, and they've been wrong on everything about the 49ers as well. It's nice to sit here and be on the show where we get everything right about the 49ers. And it's not that hard. That's the crazy thing, right? You can sit here and use your brain, use a little bit of logic, correctly analyze the strategy instead of having a track record wrong. Right about Jimmy Garoppolo, good quarterback for the 49ers. And then we said, okay, they need an upgrade in terms of mobility, especially in terms of mobility. They got it. Not with Trey Lance, though. They got it with Brock Purdy. And it was really obvious how they went from point A, good quarterback, to point B, elite quarterback, and people still wanted to be wrong about it. I mean, it's like they made it a sport. How wrong could we be about Brock Purdy? Let's keep on talking about every single Brock Purdy pass at practice and act like it's not just practice, and then look at an equally, I mean, don't even get me started on training camp last year. It was ridiculous, but we see who was right at the end of the day. So it was good. Jimmy G, the Niner great. Eric Gomes coming in. I mean, he was a good quarterback. I don't know if he was a Niner great, but I think Jimmy Garoppolo was really important to where the 49ers are now. If there's no Jimmy Garoppolo, there is no bridge to the year in, year out, perennial Super Bowl contention that the 49ers are at now. His team was 0-9 when they traded for him in 2017. They finished the season 6-10. They were 1-10 when he took over and started playing, finished 6-10. That boost that the 49ers got at the end of the 2017 season was something that really helped the program along. And then, I mean, it was an equally big gut punch in 2018 when he tore his ACL, and that ended up being the issue with Jimmy Garoppolo, was the durability, were the injuries, right? And he could not stay consistently healthy for the 49ers. So he's a good quarterback, really efficient quarterback when he was in there and healthy, but it was almost fitting based on the rest of what happened that it was an injury that gave way to Brock Purdy in 2022. Based on what I've seen at OTAs, who do I think is going to be a surprise contributor this season? Well, I can't say that based on what I've seen in OTAs. People here's the problem. People overreact on OTAs. I show you guys tape from OTAs, and it's not all 22 tape. I show you this. So it's an introduction to some of the players. You can see some of the linemen here. You can see George Kittle working out there. You can see Devondre Campbell, the linebacker, here. You can see Jared Kingston and some of the 49ers offensive linemen working on with Braden Willis and the tight ends on combo blocks there. How about the receivers? Trent Taylor, Deebo Samuel, Ricky Pearsall in the back. You could use it to look at all these guys, but as far as gauging who's going to be a surprise contributor, you got to wait till training camp for something like that. You can't base it on OTAs. Question, is this the 49ers year? I don't know if it's the 49ers year. I do know that it was the Czech Republic's year. My other country of citizenship won that world championship. So if it is the 49ers year, they're going to party like that. Well, it might not be quite that crazy, but you get the idea. I mean, this was insane. This is Old Town Square in Prague. I don't know. If the 49ers win the Super Bowl, it might get rowdy. If the 49ers win the Super Bowl, we might see scenes that are like this, except for 49ers flags. I don't know if you would have that little horn in there, though. Are the 49ers next? That's the big question that I'm going to be waiting to answer over the course of this season. Everybody, thank you for watching. Everybody have a happy Memorial Day. I hope that you can get outside. The weather is nice where I'm at right now. I'm going to be doing some traveling. I'm going to be doing some pool time. So we'll talk to everybody soon.